How do you build authentic, long-lasting trust in a relationship? And how does the way that society is structured create huge barriers for us culturally when we're trying to develop trust with one another? First, let's start with how you build trust with one another. I know that I can trust someone if they're able to receive feedback without getting defensive. That means I'm not fighting to be heard. It means that I am being respected, my experience is being respected, especially if somebody is like, oh, I didn't mean to hurt you or cause harm, but they can still acknowledge that like harm happened. That is rooted in authenticity and trust. Now, why is this culturally not the normative experience that we have in our interpersonal relationships? Let's go into the barriers. Now, I'm based out of the US. I'm in California. But if you look at, this is such a phenomenon globally because imperialism has shaped so much of the world. But when you look at these societies that are basically organized through hierarchical social systems, white supremacist, hetero-capitalist patriarchy, there's not an emphasis on mutual consent. The emphasis is on dominating over. If you just look at the legal system in this country, how it's rooted in punishment, when you make this association of like, if I cause harm, I will be punished, it automatically incentivizes you to negate any harm, to avoid harm, to escape it, really as a survival strategy so that you will avoid punishment. Punishment is not constructive for society in general. There are way better ways to handle conflict that are building trust and not escaping accountability, which, by the way, just further deepens the harm that has been caused. Naturally, a byproduct of living in a society shaped by dominator paradigms that punishes you if you make a mistake or if you cause harm, or maybe if you have trauma that you really just need help with, like if you're going to get punished for it, what happens is this subconscious binary gets created in the mind that bad people get punished, punishment is for bad people, and then you seeing your identity as static, as like, I am a good person, and so I am immune from punishment, which, by the way, this is white supremacy in action, especially when you combine white supremacy with the patriarchy. There's so many white dudes in positions of power in this country who feel like they are immune to accountability because they're a good person. In my opinion, I'm frustrated, can you tell? It's just complete insanity. In my opinion, what makes you a good person is your ability to accept responsibility for your actions. Duh! And so what happens when you're living in a society that systematically avoids responsibility and accountability? Of course, this is going to trickle into your most interpersonal relationships because culturally we have a deficit of conflict resolution skills. And so the way this plays out in your most interpersonal, beloved relationships when conflict arises, you got two people, okay? Let's say this person has good intentions, but they accidentally, without even realizing, caused harm to this person. And so this person is like, hey, I love you. This thing you did, it felt ouchy to me. And then this person, what often happens is they can't hear it. They can't accept the fact that they have caused harm because it conflicts with their self-perception, a static view of themselves as a good person, because good people don't cause harm. Good people don't get punished. And remember, we have the subconscious association of like, if I cause harm, I'm a bad person and I must be punished. So what this person, the person who caused harm, will end up doing is negate the impact altogether and just focus on their intention. They say, oh, I can't cause harm because I didn't mean to, it was an accident, which is valid, but that isn't an excuse for causing harm. Like, it doesn't dismiss you from like accepting responsibility of that, okay? So, for the people, which, by the way, this is like a systemic cultural problem in the United States and probably many other places, but I only live here, so this is what I can speak to. This creates a problem because, conflict is an inevitable part of the human experience. If you don't have conflict in your relationship, I'm honestly kind of creeped out by it. It's a red flag. Like, it is a normal part of the human experience to have conflict. And so when conflict inevitably arises, and this person is having literally an existential crisis because the way that they view themselves as a good person conflicts with the fact that, like, actually human beings have the potential to cause harm even when they don't mean to. That's just a simple fact of life. But when that person, is essentially choosing their relationship to their own ego, it's narcissism, and not to say it as like an insult or something, but like culturally, people, particularly men within a patriarchal society, not all men, but like men are encouraged to be narcissists within the US society. And so when the conflict happens, what this person is choosing is their commitment to their own ego and their self-image, their commitment to themselves at the expense of their beloved. So when conflict is really an opportunity to connect and deepen and build trust, the narcissistic, egotistical response is to hyper-focus on the intention and to really minimize the impact at all. But what that does is it leads to further disconnection between the two people. So if you're a conscious human being like me, and by the way, there's a whole community of us out there, I'm not the only one, and you're consciously co-creating cultures of care, like what does it actually look like to embody care? It's not a commitment to the ego or to narcissism, but really a commitment to humility, to looking at your shadows with courage, and to trusting that you and your partner can hold it together without weaponizing it against each other, without punishing each other, which is just replicating these systems of oppression. When we punish each other for harm that is caused, that is the way that we internalize oppression, and we're reverberating that violence in our most beloved relationships. So, for the people who are living with conscious intention, the practice is to notice the defensiveness, not to commit to it. If you notice you're defensive, take a step back. Name the defensiveness. Be like, whoa, I'm noticing my ego is very activated right now, and I don't have the capacity to have this conversation with you. Can I have some time to process my feelings, and can we touch on this again later? Part of the practice is holding the tension together. Like I said, systematically, there's a subconscious association that, like, if I cause harm and admit that and accept that, then I will be punished. I essentially will not be safe. And so, of course, it's going to activate the nervous system. Your body is an autonomous being. I made a separate video about this. And it's going to do its best to protect you at all costs. So even when logically you're safe, to admit, like, whoa, I caused harm, I'm so sorry, that is not in alignment with my values, and I'm like open to hearing your experience, even if it feels emotionally painful for me, or even if it sends my ego into a small crisis. The practice is to sit with the tension. Like, you don't have to fix everything right away, but it might just even be a growth edge for you to sit with the discomfort of, like, oh my God, I caused harm. Wow. And, like, yeah, maybe this doesn't make me a bad person. That is so trust building when you have a partner who is able to tell you, hey, you caused harm and I'm not going to weaponize it against you, but I want to invite you into a deeper conversation so that we can deepen trust and really be authentic together. Ooh. That, my friends, is the art of living. Moving into your stretch zone, being courageous, practicing trust with each other, to be able to deepen the connection, to honor what is instead of denying reality in order to preserve the ego.